Hey, Blake, welcome. I'm not hearing you. You're muted, Blake.
Oh, my. Hello.
Hey, there we go.
Hi. Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but we met at the lead for DSP a couple months ago.
Absolutely, man. How are you?
I'm good. I've been doing a lot of listening to your podcast recently because I'm driving a delivery truck for mulch, so I really have nothing else to do.
What an awesome use of your time. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Dude,
it's
that's
been
cool.
it's been really it's been great, like hearing all those stories from different people, especially because I don't know what I want to do yet, and it's just I don't know. It's cool to like hear what they're doing and what I find interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I applaud you and acknowledge you for investing in yourself. Some people would take this time and, you know, not use it productively. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. What year are you, Blake?
I'm only a freshman right now.
Okay. Well, you have plenty of time to figure out what you want to do.
Oh yeah, I know.
That's great. I see a couple more here. Ashley. Hello, Peggy.
Hi,
Hi, Ashley. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Hello, Adam.
Hi, Peggy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Are you around this afternoon?
I am.
Yeah, I'm going to call you.
Okay.
We got lots to catch up on.
Awesome.
Very good. Hey, Darren. This will be good, guys. We're going to get started here in about 3 minutes. Christy, thanks for joining us. My partner in crime here, Chad Carden, will be on in just a moment. We have done a few of these already. Some of you may have tuned in to some of the Renzo presentations. We're talking about leadership today, especially as it relates to resetting, re-engaging the workforce and returning back to whatever it looks like when we go back. We'll talk about how to do that specifically today. But it's great to have everybody here. In the past, we've done these where we have not done a Q&A, but we are going to offer Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions throughout, Chad and I will be more than happy to answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So, hey, Chad, welcome. You're muted, my friend.
Are we going to give it a couple minutes, or we're going to?
Yeah, we'll give it 2 minutes here. Maybe 2.5. Start on time, end on time, right? That's what we're trying to do.
Perfect.
That's good. Chad, one thing, I'm going to make sure you are the co-host so you can see the chat box.
Perfect.
We got 16 folks joined us right now. I think there were about 45 or 50 that had registered. Okay, Chad, you are the co-host.
Got it.
Adam, what kind of screen is behind you?
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for asking. So it's Friday, and I figured I would do this from the Irish pub down the street. Since there was no one here, I decided this is as good an office as any. So Chad's still at the office because he's a little bit harder working guy than I am, but I'm at the pub.
That looks perfect.
Doesn't
it's
it?
5 o'clock somewhere.
I mean, it's a great environment to work in here. Natural lighting, the smell of whiskey. It's just a perfect place to talk about getting back to work. All right, what do you say, Chad? About 30 seconds?
Yeah, that's fine. I did have some people that just reached out to me and said that they would obviously catch the recording like some of these others. So
Okay.
I don't want to hold some of these people up.
No worries. No worries. Well, welcome everybody to another Renzo free training. We don't even like the word training. We love development. We talk about being developers of human capital within organizations because candidly, Chad and I believe that your people are your greatest investment. And just even a modicum of improvement in every single person on your team could create just a windfall of business and productivity to the business in general. So today's program is really all about how do we go back to work? And that's not to say that people haven't been, but it's certainly been different than what maybe they were used to 6 weeks ago. So we talk about this being the reset, re-engage, and return plan presented by Renzo. Let me tell you really quick about us. My name is Adam Carroll. I'm the co-founder of Renzo. My partner in crime here, Chad Carden, is on with us, also a co-founder. Chad and I have been in the people business for the last 15 to 20 years. And when I say the people business, we work within organizations to help companies develop their folks. And what we found is that by and large, we are all in the people business. It doesn't matter what we're selling, what service we're offering, we are all in the people business. And so if we can help improve your people, which we call human capital, we can improve the environments, and we can then improve the outcomes that your company is looking to generate. So without further ado, we're going to dive into this today. And Chad, I want to let you talk about the high-level framework we want to give people.
Yeah, I think the timing is right. I know a lot of states are reopening. I think some states are reopening today. Our state, Missouri, I think is quote unquote reopening on Monday the 4th. And so people are now beginning to think about what happens after this craziness that we've all been through, still going through candidly, but I mean, how can we set up for a higher probability of success moving forward? We understand that every situation is individualized. Adam and I are working with clients right now on this entire blueprint and plan, and every situation's unique, and every situation is you really have to look at through your own lens. And so we're going to provide the framework over the next 20-25 minutes with you here today. Our ask of you is that you absorb the information, but really look at it through a personal lens and get selfish. Look at your team, your organization, your situation, and how can some of these pieces fit into that will work for you as we create something that's practical for you moving forward. And so, and we'll come back to that at the end. And so if there's any Q&A, I've got the chat up as Adam mentioned. Feel free to throw those in there, and hopefully we can answer some of those questions. And if not, if it's better to work offline, we're happy to do that too.
Absolutely. So the first step of this process in the 3 steps that we're going to list out today is reset. And Chad and I like to use the adage, we have to challenge the old. There's been a lot of talk about returning to business as usual. And the reality is there will be no as usual. What we have gone through, as many people have said on the news and in public, is this is unprecedented. It has literally changed what people are going through in their business models. So we need to challenge old mindsets. And some of those may be, we need everyone in a room to do training or meetings. Obviously, there's a lot of things that have happened within organizations that have created an environment where online meetings, working through Microsoft Teams or Zoom, has become the norm, and people have gotten really, really good at it. So we have to reset by challenging any old notion. There is a theory that we have within Renzo right now that is, if you are basing anything on the old narrative, it is very detrimental, or could be very detrimental to the business. And Chad, you use an even stronger word. What's the word you use?
I think it's irresponsible. I candidly think it's irresponsible to go back to the old way. Our narratives are really strong, and our typical response unconsciously is to challenge the new, right? Anything that's new. We have heard from some of our clients like, well, this is what we've always done, and this is the way we've always done business. And so anytime a new idea comes up, as humans, we're actually almost programmed to challenge the new, because we're so in tune with the narrative of what we know and what's comfortable. I think the lens we have to look at, again, as Adam mentioned, is consciously challenge the old. Not to say that the old can't come with us, but make the past justify why it makes sense in this new or this next normal as we're going to talk about as we move forward. I'm not about ripping off the rearview mirror, but don't allow the old to get into the way of or create a headwind for what's coming next.
So I'm guessing that many of you could probably relate to the idea that evolution is a very slow process. I think time has shown us that businesses sort of evolve over time, ideas evolve over time, and that's a normal, natural thing. But what we're going through right now is not a normal, natural, slow thing. What we are going through right now is called punctuated equilibrium. And I got this from a microbiologist friend of mine who he was telling me about this process. And he said, evolution is very slow. It took a long time for organisms, people to develop. But he said, occasionally throughout history, there is this evolutionary theory called punctuated equilibrium. And what it means is that organisms are forced to adapt or be agile to whatever their environment is to make a change. And I asked this friend of mine, give me some prime examples of this. And he said, well, the most notable one is back in the UK during the Industrial Revolution, the trees started slowly or maybe quickly turning brown. And the reason the trees turned brown was the smog, the smoke, the coal burning, all of the production plants that had fired up right away were turning the trees brown. And he said, as a result, what happened was brown moths became one of the most populous species there were during that period of time. And it goes without saying, right? Brown moths would be camouflaged on a brown tree where a white moth would be eaten by a bird right away. So I said, how does this relate to business today? And he said, there are certain organizations that are well suited for the environment that we're in today. And they will see rapid expansion, rapid growth. They'll be very, very successful. And I said, give me an example. He said, well, we're on it right now. Zoom had 10 million users per day in January. Today, they have 300 million users per day logging into Zoom. This is a brown moth type scenario. They not only survive, but they thrive in a punctuated equilibrium because naturally their business model fits the situation that we're in right now. So Chad and I started looking at other examples of companies who are doing this, who are trying to thrive in the middle of punctuated equilibrium. And these are just some of the ones that we found. Jared Jewelers, look in the middle of the screen. They're offering virtual weddings coming soon. Chad, you saw a commercial on this, did you not?
I saw a commercial and it blew my mind. I saw it was a Zoom picture of maybe 50, 60, 100 pictures around it. And right in the center was the couple getting married right there live as people were exploring it. And I thought to myself, how quickly Jared pivoted to fit the situation. Again, markets have shifted, your customers have shifted, the world has shifted. And so how can you think about what makes sense for you to shift that, again, allows you to be successful? This is just one example.
Absolutely.
It absolutely floored me, like how quickly that went from the normal way of thinking of what a traditional wedding looks like. Now, not to say they're not going to go back to traditional weddings, but this could be another option. So how can we provide more options for our customers? How can we provide more options for our team that allow us to live into this, whatever makes sense for us?
Yeah. And I hear they're partnering with Grubhub to deliver rubbery chicken to the participants. There you go. All right. So the other thing to keep in mind here is as companies like Jared promote virtual weddings, imagine what it does to the hotel industry and what caterers or wedding photographers are doing. They also have to pivot their business. So we not only need to look at our own industry, but then look at other industries to help give us some guidance and direction on how to think differently, think bigger.
I think that's key, Adam. I think the domino effect is going to be unbelievable. And I think that we need to also be, like you said, what are the 3 or 4 chain links that we are connected with that might impact us based on how others shift in this whole thing?
Indeed. So here's a shift that's happening. Parents are hiring Zoom babysitters so they can shelter in peace, not in place, but in peace. So they're, according to, I think it was, the WAPO, overwhelmed parents are paying professionals to virtually babysit while they work. There are some folks that are putting themselves out there, and I can't remember what the service is, but it's the service you go to where if you're looking for someone to, I think it's care.com actually. On care.com, they will have virtual only. So they're virtual only providers that will literally do virtual babysitting sessions, which is just insane to me. Virtual staging came up in a conversation with a realtor friend of mine the other day. He mentioned that because walkthroughs and open houses might be a thing of the past, or at least for the foreseeable future, that virtual galleries or virtual staging is happening. And for about a third of the price, you can virtually stage your empty home, and it looks as good as or better than what it would look like in real life. So the software is amazingly robust and will help you potentially sell a home without spending thousands of dollars to stage it. Restaurants, according to CNN Business, are transforming into grocery stores. In our area, some of them have turned into liquor stores. And Chad, you have one nearby that's done this, yes?
Yeah, number one, we just experienced one where he turned into a liquor store. Now he's opening a second location to actually be the restaurant moving forward. I was talking to another restaurant owner that they own 68 restaurants, and they never, prior to this, they never thought about the curbside business, the delivery business. It just wasn't in their model. But again, now that they have had to pivot, now it will become a piece of their business model. They'll certainly go back to the traditional restaurant way that we all know to be true and that we all enjoy, but they're actually going to have additional revenue streams, and they've actually invested in. They bought 10 vehicles for delivery, where now never would have crossed their mind before, now becomes their new normal or their next normal as they move into the next phase.
Yeah, we were talking about this before, that the words contactless delivery never existed together before this. I mean, why would someone have contactless delivery? So amazing how people are pivoting and changing. Lastly, the idea of the office and what the office looks like is changing as we know it. This was on Vox.com, but there was basically a line item listing of how offices may change. And it comes to things like, you won't have to pull on a handle to open a door any longer. Many of these offices will go to an automatic door opening based on sensors. They talked about the fact that common areas like an elevator would all be voice activated. So you would just say the floor that you want and it would automatically press it so as not to do any transmission of germs. They talked about the fact that workspaces that are normally or have become more confined, or even open workspaces where they call them communities in certain buildings, where a team might go in and invade this community for a week at a time, and they're all working on these desktops that are provided to them. That will no longer be a thing because of the germ transmission there. So know that the idea of working and going to an office space is being rethought a little bit. A good friend of mine is the CFO for a hospital group, and he said they just signed a 10-year lease about 6 months ago, and they're rethinking all of their leases because so many of their people are getting a lot done from home. They're wondering if they actually need the space that they had secured before. So things are changing drastically in the office area.
I think all of this is, again, we could bore you to death with examples, but I think the key is going back to that thing, challenging the old, is that how do you challenge it almost to the ridiculous? There are going to be entirely new verticals within the marketplace that are going to be created as a result of this. And even if your business model doesn't shift at all, how do you at least challenge it? And how do you at least look at the way you operate to potentially find one small shift that could create a whole new playing field for you, your customers, and your organization moving forward? I think that's the key in all this.
One of my financial service clients, Chad, recently built a branch, but it is a 600 square foot branch for their bank, their credit union. And the idea was that they are pushing everyone online to do all the online transactions they can. So they don't need a gigantic footprint that costs millions and millions of dollars. They need a small space in a strip mall, and it's a very small space, like a sliver of a space, in order to have foot traffic. But they're counting on more and more people going online. And it was a test for them about a year ago, and it's been one of the most successful branches they've had from a profitability standpoint. So know that, again, we're challenging the old and rethinking what is new, what is the next normal, which leads us to our next slide. It's not going to be the new normal when we go back, if we go back, whatever that looks like. It is the next normal. And the reason we want to brand it as the next normal is the new normal suggests that this is the way it's going to be. And, we got to get used to this for the next 10 years. In all reality, we're probably going to see a number of shifts and changes over the coming months, quarters, and years. So the next normal might be a 6 to 12 month phase. It will be the next normal, but we need to start using that kind of vernacular and verbiage so that people don't get stuck in the same and get their mind wrapped around what has always been, or this is the new way. Why are things changing? The reality is we are in an evolutionary period in business. It's punctuated equilibrium, and we have to be ready for whatever the next normal is.
And I think with that, the other thing is that we have all proven that we can change overnight. Candidly, change doesn't necessarily take time. A lot of times, change just takes effort. We were all forced into change in a lot of different ways, business, personal. You know, the complete world was forced to change. We proved that we could do it because all of us have in one way, shape, or form. How do we keep that mindset as we look at the next normal, where change has been uncomfortable for years, and we've always heard that, but when challenged, most people have stepped up. And so how can you continuously live in that paradigm where you're challenging the next normal and realizing that what happens in the next 6 months might be completely different as the 6 months after that and the 6 months after that. And it will probably be, again, a process as we go through this to whatever this looks like down the road.
Absolutely. So that leads us to this idea that no idea is a bad idea. As you get into the reset mode, know that one of the things we're recommending is that you get a group of people together to ideate and brainstorm what looks different. Let's challenge all the old ideas, look at some of the new ideas, and keep in mind that no idea is a bad idea. There's a theory in improv comedy called yes and yes and theory is something that says that anytime someone comes up with an idea, you can only ever build upon the idea. You can never cut down the idea. So right now, you know, some of the pariahs out there are actually going to come up with new business models that are fantastic in this environment. We need the out-of-the-box thinkers to come to the table and say, what about this? And you can say, yes, and if we did that, we could do this. And let's just run with it. Go to the ridiculous. I mean, who would have thought a virtual wedding would be presented by a jewelry company? It's a great idea. And we have to look at two environments, both the internal environment and the external environment. The internal environment is how do we work together? And the external environment looks like how do our clients or customers engage with us on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? What is different? What's changed? And know that no idea is a bad idea.
Yeah, I think the key there is we can always vet the ideas later. Right now, let's put them on the table and let's explore them. There might be 99 that are bad, but let's not judge them right now. Let's vet them, let's explore them, and then toss them, because you never know what you're going to find through this idea exchange.
So when people ask, well, when do we do this? The answer that Chad and I are giving customers right now is right now. Let's do the reset meetings now. Let's figure out what it looks like into the future. And this may be committees. You may have 3 or 4 committees that are focused on one particular area of the business, and then come together and talk through what those different groups came up with and how they might be implemented. So once that is done, once those conversations are had, there are planning meetings, we've brainstormed, the next step is to re-engage. And re-engaging is really, really important in this moment, because as sanctions are lifted and people are going back to work, whatever that might look like, what we have to do is we have to communicate in detail what the new vision is. And the reason we talk about resetting and re-engage is if the reset doesn't happen and the communication of the new vision doesn't happen, what we would call a reset button, folks are going to come back and they're going to have assumptions that things are going back to normal. And the challenge of coming back to normal means that people have expectations of what's going to happen. And a good friend of mine has always said that uncommunicated expectations are just pre-planned resentments. So you're going to have people that are going to come back to the table with expectations of what leadership looks like or what their bonus structure looks like. And they're going to be resentful when those things don't happen, even though they never communicated that they had the expectations in the first place. So we have to hit the reset button and say, okay, we're starting anew. Here is the new vision moving forward, and this is what it looks like. And we talk about taking the bus to a certain city. You want to talk about that, Chad?
Yeah, some of you who are on here that experienced us before know that we talk about, what is the direction? How do we create that clarity? Where is the bus going? And how do we make sure that everybody is clear on that direction, aligned on that direction, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit, but That's key. So well, again, this is a staple at Renzo, is that we understand that re-engagement, if you want to engage people at the highest levels, these three things have to be present. You have to create clarity, you have to create alignment, and you have to create purpose. Everybody has to understand how they fit in, what they do matters. Even if the clarity is unclear right now, how can we be transparent that we're still building this out as we go? We're still creating this roadmap. We're not exactly for sure where the destination is, but communicating that. And the communication has to be, again, clear, concise, and consistent. I think now more than ever, we have to hold people's hand through this, and it really is hand-to-hand combat. That's how you keep people engaged and help them re-engage into this next playing field that we're all going to live into.
Exactly. I think Chad hit the nail on the head. Clarity may mean transparency. So if there is no new vision yet, it's okay to say so. It is also imperative that you give people a deadline of when they're going to see it, so that they have some calm hand and understanding of what's going to be expected in the future. So we'll talk about how to do this. The real deal is we have to communicate the new direction and communicate the expectations prior to everyone, again, coming back to the next normal. Here's the way we do that. We have talked about in previous development sessions, the idea behind floodlight thinking, spotlight thinking, and laser thinking. Floodlight, and we use a stage analogy or a concert analogy for this. Floodlights are when those big bright lights shine on the entire audience and you see everything. Well, a floodlight in your business might be saying, hey, by year end, this is what we're going to accomplish. And in quote unquote normal times, it's easy for people to wrap their head around, okay, I know how we're going to get there and this is what everyone needs to do and we're all on board. There is clarity and alignment on that. In the midst of COVID-19 and quarantine, we have talked about a requirement on spotlight thinking, which is going to your teams and saying, what are you working on currently? This is what's important. We want to make sure we get this done by the end of the week or the end of the month. And there's a very specific timeline for it. Laser thinking is actually zeroing down into the person or the activity and helping them define what they need to do on a regular basis. And the reason we talk about moving from floodlight to laser is you're going to have folks on your teams that they may not adjust well. They may not really like the next normal. And so when you get into laser thinking with them, it's really about helping them understand how they fit into whatever the next plan is and helping them see what success looks like, coaching them to that, leading them through that, et cetera.
And one of the things that brings up a great point is when we talk about clarity and with direction and expectations, I don't think it's just expectations are a two-way street. We have to outline what we expect of them, but we have to also understand what they expect of us, right? What do our people expect of us as an organization, as a leader? Because some of them might be curious and interested to come back to work. Some of them might want to stay at home. They find they're more productive or they want flexible hours. Some of them might candidly be scared to come back and wherever their mindset is, and we have to be sensitive to that. And we have to be respectful as we begin to communicate, because if we're not aligned on expectations, again, it sets us up for disappointment moving forward. I was working with a client the other day and we're working on this whole reset plan. And one of the things they talked about is how can we reimagine how we work together? And I think that's the key, is that how can this shared ownership together, which we might talk about a little bit later, how can we do that allows everybody to feel comfortable and everybody to be aligned to the new vision?
Indeed. Essentially what Chad is saying is we got to go to the individual level. So the next normal requires a different kind of leadership. There are some leaders out there who are just kind of a follow me and everyone does. This next normal is going to require a little bit more of an individualized approach to the people that you're working with. So we'll talk about how to do that in the return. We talk about this all the time as a team and as an organization, that assumptions are the enemy. Chad, to his credit, has been amazingly skilled at helping organizations, ours included, create clarity about what is expected, what we are going to do, what the next steps are. He knows that it requires laser thinking with some people. It requires spotlight thinking with others, and floodlight from the general perspective of all of us working together. Just know that as you return, as people are coming back to the next normal, any kind of assumptions are the enemy. And that includes what they assume of you and what you're assuming of them. And we have to be very, very clear about those from the get-go. So here is what becomes most important in the next normal. If your company was prone to doing check-ins and huddles, kudos. That is part of the next step of being a really great leader in the next normal. Check-ins might look like a daily check-in. One of my clients does periodic check-ins with folks on his team, and it is literally a phone call that he's checking in to take a temperature, which I think is a brilliant, brilliant move. Huddles look like someone getting their team together for 15 minutes at the beginning of each day and saying, what's most important for you today? What's most important for you today? What's going to get done today? What do you expect of yourself? Here's what I expect of you. What do you expect of me? It's a very, very quick process. We call them HEAT meetings, H-E-A-T. It's an acronym that stands for how are you, first and foremost. E is expectations, A is acknowledgement, and T is we're a team, we'll get through this together. But we're doing that on a regular basis to make sure that our team knows that we are on their side and that we're all part of this team working together. The reason we do it is we have to recommit to the company values. In the midst of chaos, sometimes it's hard to go back to those 5 core things or 3 core things that the company stands for. And so this is a chance for us to really recommit to values. And last but not least is empathy. And I believe that leaders in the next normal need to understand that people are going through their own thing. And by their own thing, what I mean by that is we have folks that we've seen on Zoom chats that are attempting to get work done from their kitchen table, from their dining room table, from their furnace closet. One guy showed up in a Zoom meeting and I was like, where are you? He said, I'm in my mechanicals room in the basement. It's the only quiet place in the house. There are dogs that are running through scenes. Not a big deal. We love having Murdoch is at my feet right now. I love that. But it also is a new normal, the new next normal. And so having empathy for people, the fact that they might have 3 kids that are trying to get schoolwork done in another room, all of this is really important in the next normal. So really ratcheting up empathy for other people should be part of a leader's playbook.
I think the other thing is that remembering the return, when it comes to the return, it really is. It goes back to that hand-to-hand combat. I mean, it takes a while to change new habits, to change old thought process, to change the narrative, to shift the lens that people look through. And it takes a while to do that. And sometimes as you're creating the new, it's about breaking the old. And these check-ins, these huddles, recommitting to our values, having that empathy, it really is a daily task. That's that laser focus that we talk about. It can't be this blanket type of leadership. That just won't work in this particular transition. It might work down the road, and it certainly worked for some in the past. But right now, as we're shifting into the next normal, it really does take a laser focus to make sure that we're helping people come along and shifting their mindset and aligning to what is now in place that, again, allows us to all be successful.
Chad, talk about hand-to-hand combat. You've talked about that a couple times.
What I mean by that is it really takes, and it's more stress on leaders, but it really takes looking at it through a very fine, individualized plan on how are we. There are certainly some floodlight things that we can do, but hand-to-hand combat is really in honing in on my people and understanding what their individual situations are and how I help them adapt to whatever it is happening. That's what I mean by that. Again, it's extra work, but I believe it's necessary. And if we don't do that step, it will take much longer for us to get re-engaged into this next normal as we go.
Yep. Science has proven that it takes 66 times of doing something before it's habitual. And so if we're talking about fighting the old narrative, what we are doing on a daily basis is reminding people what the next normal is. But if it is 66 business days of doing that, that is literally 13 to 14 weeks of time of communicating here's where we're headed, here's where we're headed. And you're going to feel like a broken record. You absolutely will. But Chad and I had the opportunity to work in AT&T. And at AT&T, there was a marketing director that was asked, how do you create a cohesive brand strategy and a go-to-market and all of that? And he said, you find a very simple message and you repeat it over and over and over and over and over again until people are absolutely exhausted of it. But at that level, people are very clear on what the goal is, and they're all aligned because they've heard it a million times. So know that you may feel like a broken record what we're talking about, but 66 times in, people are gonna be like, nope, got it. This is who we are. This is where we're going. So to Chad's point, it will take time, but it's worth it when the next normal becomes what everyone's go-to habitual process is. All right. So Chad, I'll let you handle the
Yeah.
last people.
As we wrap, as we come down for land, I know we're a little bit over than what I told some of my people, so I appreciate you staying with us. Is the return to realize that it's not going to be perfect. We're going to run into some roadblocks. We're going to hit some walls. And so how do we begin once we reset and understand where we're moving into this next normal, and we begin to re-engage and return? How do we begin to implement? How do we evaluate on a consistent basis and make adjustments where necessary? Those three things seem very simple, but they're not at all simplistic, right? Those three things on a consistent basis and being consciously aware of, not just being set in concrete, but being very fluid and very dynamic as we move into this next normal. These three things are going to be key as we look at the return, to make sure that we're doing things on a consistent basis that allow us the highest probability of success. We're going to have some failures, and we're going to have some opportunities to adjust. We just need to make sure we take advantage of them when necessary. And again, being transparent, we think that is key throughout this whole process. Putting it, Adam and I talking about, we were working with the client yesterday, Adam and I talking about putting it in the arena, which it's known. We all might not agree with it, but how do we know it to be true so we can make adjustments accordingly and help our team make adjustments as we move forward? That's the key.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head on it, Chad. It's failing fast and failing forward. So if there are failures, let's not be afraid to make them. Let's just learn from them and grow and move on really quickly. So implement, evaluate, and make adjustments. We have started working with a number of clients already and having these discussions. And one of the sayings that we love at Renzo is, it's hard to read the label when you're on the inside of the jar. And so the reason that clients of ours are partnering with us is we have the ability to read the label on the outside of the jar. And our goal is to be as impartial as possible, ask really good questions, and help steer some of the vision, or at least articulate the communication of that vision to your team in the way that's best suitable for them, because everyone receives messages differently. So when we talk about what's the next action for you in the reset, re-engage, return plan, again, it's very individualized. But for you, what is it? And if we can help, we would love to help in any way, shape, or form. The best way to do that is either visiting our website, which is renzoexperience.com, or shooting an email to info@renzoexperience.com. Along those lines, we've also created a checklist for you that will get you started in these dialogues. Now, this by no means is an exhaustive list of what you should be doing, but it will at least get you started in having the conversations around resetting, around re-engaging, around returning. What are the kinds of decisions that need to be made? And you can find that at renzoexperience.com/reset blueprint.
Yeah, I think also if you're on this, or if you signed up for this, MR, Molly Rose is going to be sending this out as well. I sent this out to a group of people on my distro list, I think yesterday, and just had some amazing feedback on it. Again, it's a very high level checklist that allows you to make sure that you're moving down the path, and with whether it's your team, your organization at the highest levels, it's just a good roadmap. Getting a lot of good feedback on it. So hopefully it's a great resource for you as well.
And again, any questions that come up from this, please do reach out to us. We'd love to have a chat with you about your situation, whether it be departmental, organizational, or individual as a leader. We mentioned this at the very beginning. We've not done a lot of Q&A, but I think given the status and the situation we're in, we thought we'd open it up. So Chad, we'll open this up in either the chat, or if you want to chime in and ask a question, we'd be happy to answer it.
Nothing in the chat yet. And again, if it makes sense to be offline, that's great too. If there's anything that it comes to mind right now that we can handle in a quick manner, let's do it. Laura said, well, the recipe didn't be shared. Laura, help me understand your question. What's one new ridiculous opportunity Renzo is going to pursue in your next normal? That's a great question. That's from Tom. So what are we pursuing? Listen, I think it has allowed us, candidly, in 48 hours, we had to shift the business. Probably like a lot of people here, we literally had to shift the business with a lot of our retainer clients to how do we continue to service them virtually. And so that is we will certainly go back to live events and being in person. We don't think you can replace that. However, our new ridiculous is how do we offer virtual things that are just as good, if not better, as what we do in person? We pride ourselves on the highest level of development and the meetings that we run and the sessions that we run. However, Adam and I are figuring out and looking at ways on how our team can do that from a virtual standpoint as an option if people want to take advantage of that, which would save bringing everybody into a location, which would save time, which would save true dollars, candidly, in hotels and food and all the things that they pay. How can we create an experience virtually that's just as good, again, if not better, as our live events that we do? Will the recording be shared? Yes. Adam, anything else to add to the next normal for Renzo? Because I know you and I have a lot of yes and ideas.
Yes. And I think that one of the things we've done is we've really amped up what it's like to be on a Zoom chat like this. So from a technological perspective, I mean, we like to imagine that we're filmed before a live studio audience all the time. When we tell a joke, we get our own laugh track. So we're trying to make this as interesting as possible for the viewer, because a very flat 2D meeting is not that interesting, particularly if you're doing a long 3 or 4 hour training. So I'm building a studio that will have a 3-camera shoot. We can do all sorts of things on a whiteboard. It's going to be very creative, because we do think that people are going to engage in development sessions online and with other people. So one of the other examples is we're working with a client right now to develop an online forum, and it is a leadership forum where he is inviting senior level folks from his clientele into our leadership forum as a means of showing value for his customer base, but then also introducing us to them and being able to create almost like a virtual mastermind online. And we're very, very excited about where that's going, because we think we could go from vertical to vertical using that model.
And we do a lot of breakouts in our live sessions. If you've ever experienced it, you know what I'm talking about, where we do breakouts in small groups, then we bring people back to a group. With Zoom, Adam, you did this, last week, where you put people into individualized Zoom rooms, if you will,
It worked
had
great.
them brainstorm a few things, and you said it was seamless.
It does. It works awesome. We had 40 people in a room and then broke them into 10 different rooms of 4 people each. And I can pop into each room and ask questions and make sure the facilitation's happening. And yeah, it's seamless.
A couple of our ridiculous opportunities, which we're excited about. Continuously sharing, again, I think that a lot of our model will come through, but there's also a lot of ancillary opportunities for us as we grow and develop. The recording will be shared. Yes, Laura, not the recipe, but we don't have a recipe, but the recording will be shared. I think that for now, AC, if you have anything else, if not, we let these people get on about their day.
Down there might have been a question, Chad.
I got one question. Well, first of all, Adam and Chad, awesome. Thank you very much. You guys do a great job. Part of that checklist that you'll be sharing, I haven't been able to see that yet, but I'm kind of curious as leaders how we should be planning for what if we do this or have to do this again in a short period of time, you know, depending on what you hear and what the news is, blah, blah, blah. Is that part of it, or is that another piece that we should be thinking about in case we're right back here again?
I think it's a great question. I do think that should be part of the plan, of having a contingency plan on what if we almost do a complete full circle and come back 360 where we go into quarantine again and go into isolation. I think it's not a specific check box on our checklist, but I think that should be a part of it. And I appreciate you bringing it up, because it's something, Adam, that we should think about adding and helping our clients figure out, not just assuming. Assumption is the enemy, right? That's what you talked about earlier. Not just assuming that all of this will just continue to move in the direction that it's moving. We might backslide. I think it's a great point. Anything else to add on that, AC?
Yeah, I do too, Darren. I appreciate the question. I think the way that I would approach it, candidly, is look at the next 6 months as a prototype and figure out, we're prototyping what the business of the future looks like, what the next normal looks like. And 6 months in, we'll know, does this work or does it not? And once we've got the prototype done, let's build the final thing and say, okay, this is the next normal for at least the foreseeable future until we come up with the next calamity, whatever that might be. Everything that I'm studying right now says that we're kind of in the dip. So things are going to have to be reimagined. And this might last a year, might last 18 months. After that, we'll have this 10-year period where things will be sort of returning to homeostasis. Everything will kind of get back to normal. We'll figure out what normal is, and everyone will adjust. So over the next 10 years, we'll see the economy probably move sideways. We're not going to have a tremendous amount of growth, but likely move sideways. And can we build a prototype that works within that model? I think that's what we're really trying to do.
Great question.
Yep. Any other comments in the chat, Chad?
That's it.
All right. Well, we greatly appreciate everyone's participation in this. If you are interested again in the guide, go to renzoexperience.com/reset blueprint. We appreciate y'all being here, and we will continue providing these so long as they add value. So if you want to give us a Y or an N, if you found some value in this, we think one great idea is enough to make massive change. So if you give us a Y, we'll continue doing it.
Adam, really quick, there was one other. What's the new pivot that you think won't ultimately land based on human tendencies to forget what has happened? So I guess the question from Tyler is, we easily forget sometimes as humans, and some people want to go right back to it. So what is the new pivot that you think will ultimately stick or land in this? Adam, any insights to that as people pivot into this next normal?
Well, I think we're actually going to find that this is me speculating purely, but I think we're going to find that people are actually more productive and more efficient. And we had this discussion on a client call this morning that, when folks meet face-to-face for coffee, an hour-long coffee can easily turn into 75 minutes to 90 minutes. And if we're doing more things virtually, which I think is going to be the pivot, we can be more productive in a shorter amount of time, still get our socialization, still be connected with people, but our meetings will definitely change. And
I think that's the key, is that how can we be intentional about it and really making sure that, we're intentional about and not letting things creep back in of what sort of the old narrative was.
Chad taught me something years ago, everyone, and it was he or she who controls the agenda controls the meeting. And I think that's the other key lesson or learning through this is meetings should really start on time and end on time, and they should have an agenda. And if you have an agenda, we get through that quickly, we can be more efficient. I think being online and having to do this virtually, we just need to have a little bit of preparation before we go into the actual meeting to make sure that we're using that time effectively.
Perfect.
Yep. But I think virtual is the pivot that sticks.
That's all we got. We got a bunch of Y's, which is good.
That's good. All right. Well, we'll continue doing this. Everyone check out renzoexperience.com. If we can help you in any way, whether that be just an exploratory conversation, discovery call, just you want to get some stuff off your chest and want our impressions of it, go to the website and click on the Let's Talk link and just send us some info. We'll set up a call. It'll likely either be with Chad, myself, or both of us. We love to have these conversations. We have a bench of consultants who are amazing at what they do. And, again, we just want to help people reset, re-engage, and return successfully. So check out renzoexperience.com, click on the Let's Talk button, and let's talk. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here.